was the moment that you decided that boxing was for you? Like
I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, after giving it a lot of thought,
Yeah.
I actually think the reason I started boxing was to gain confidence in myself, like being young. And the other thing is too, like, I reckon like a lot of young people, mainly guys, you know, and people grow up and you've got like a little bit of fear, intimidate, you know, like with just, I don't know, the world, people, the area I grew up in, you know, like there was a lot of tough kids and stuff. Like I just didn't want to feel intimidated.
Because you started when you, like you said, like 15, 16?
Yeah, so that's when I started training.
Yeah.
But I'd sort of, you know...
Training in your desert boots?
Yeah, desert boots and jeans. But before then, I liked boxing. I'd sort of, went through magazines and the newsagents, and I knew who a lot of the good fighters were. Jeff Fennick was around at the time, and everyone knew who he was and what he was doing. It was one of those sports that I was attracted to, but I didn't know why I was attracted to it, if you know what I mean. I was like, why am I, why is there like a pull?
It's nearly like boxing found you and not you found boxing.
Oh, well, why am I getting pulled towards it? You know what I mean? Like I did martial arts and stuff like that, and I liked it, but just I don't know, the whole boxing thing. I just got pulled towards it, and it wasn't like one thing or an incident that made me think, oh, I'm going to box. It was just like a series of events, from just having the boxing bag in your garage and liking the feeling of hitting it. And
at what point was it that you went, I'm going to be Australian champion?
It was probably, I learnt what it felt like to win, and I knew how to do it. And with boxing, it wasn't like a team sport. Obviously you got your coach and people at the gym, but ultimately it's up to you. So I would, and you never get it out of your mind half the time. Like you sort of, it's always on your mind. Like if you've got a bout coming up in 2 weeks, you're thinking about it every day, up until then. Like you're training. So you wake up in the morning, I've got to go for a run. I've got to do my road work. I've got to run, and then tonight I'm going to go to the gym. And so you just start that process, and you're moving towards it, that fight. So you never get it out of your mind. Like it's like I could walk down the street, and I'm feeling like the balls of my toes in the ground, pushing off, going. That's why you see people always shadow boxing, and because it's just like little, and you don't know when it's going to come into your mind. You don't sit there and just like meditate on it. You're just like, at school, you're at school doing stuff, and next minute you're deep in thought about this boxing fight you got coming up in 2 weeks, and people are going like, teacher, pay attention. You're like, oh, sorry, man, I was away, you know what I mean? I was thinking about, this boxing fight I got coming up. And, like I told you, for me it wasn't like, it was a sport, but I don't know, I just took it really seriously, like the whole...
Next level.
Oh, it was ultimate challenge, It was like gladiator stuff. Like I actually, if you picture the boxing ring, the lights, all the people, they're all down lower, the ring's a metre in the air. It's like you're up for public display. And the worst thing that can happen is you get beat bad. It's like public humiliation. Like you got to invest the time and put in the training. It doesn't just happen. So you go to a boxing show or a football match and you're a spectator. You're watching from the outside going, oh, this would be good. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a go at this. And then you leave, and you don't really give it a thought for another week, and then it's in the back of your mind, but you've done nothing. You know what I mean? But so for me, I went to a boxing fight. I was a shit spectator. I used to watch it going, no, I've got to be in it. I'm doing, you know, I'm either doing, I'm not a great spectator. I'm actually not even really interested.
Who did you model yourself from when you saw the boxers and you sort of went, because I remember you talking about Mike Tyson, that you were the same kind of build. And
yeah, I mean,
would he be one of the main influences on the?
100%, the total one. You know, they even started calling me like White Mike, White Tyson or something. I hated it. I hated it, but that's just, you know, that's because I'd watched it so much as a kid. You know, I watched, like I said, like he, you know, 1986, November 1986, I reckon it was, he, you know, won the world title. And then in 1987, I would have been, I don't know, maybe 13. And I was like in a pub with my family watching, you know, he was like on the Sky Channel screen up there, and everyone was in the pub just watching, going, have a look at this guy. And I just remember sitting there as a kid going, that guy is a machine, you know. And then from then on, like I was just like, yeah, you know, I'd sit there all day watching Wild World of Sport with a video recorder button, you know, waiting to record like snippets. I had every newspaper clipping I could find. I used to go on the weekends, I'd just sit in the news agents, not buying the magazines, but just reading them, just articles, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I've still got the scrapbooks with all the cuttings out of it, you know? So I was like an obsessed Mike Tyson fan. I remember going to Fiji with my parents when I was 13 years old, and we're walking down the street in Fiji, and there was a little shop, and the guy had a Mike Tyson poster at the back of his shop, like in the, I don't know, in his back room, and I saw it and I was like, I want that poster. So we were, I don't know, it might have been a camera shop or something, and we're in there, he's trying to sell us a camera. I said, no, I want that poster. And he's like, oh, it's not for sale. I'm like, it's got to have a price. So we're bartering in Fiji for a Mike Tyson poster in a camera shop. And this guy's just like, what? I got to sell him a poster? I think he ended up giving it to us because he was just like, what does this kid want, you know? But I was just like an obsessed fan. Like I could watch, you know, most of his fights. I knew the commentary. I could turn the volume down and commentate the exact words that the commentator would be saying. And I would almost mimic every punch thrown. I could just do it. Like yeah. So hence, when I started boxing, when I, you know, at 16, had my first fight, I was just like a little Mike Tyson protege, like, you know, trying to do the intimidation thing, but I was short and stocky, and the guys I was boxing, like I was 16, and they didn't have people in my weight division. They didn't have people my age in that weight division, so I was fighting, you know, basically men. And, you know, and that was scary enough when you're a kid. And I was just like, oh, I can't do this. Actually, what we were talking about before, about why you started fighting, or, you know, why you wanted to compete, because it actually, like, scared the hell out of me to want to do it. And I just thought, I need to overcome that fear that I had. So I'm gonna box. So it was like, it used to scare the shit out of me. My fourth amateur fight, I, you know, went to another town, wherever it was, and my dad was there, and a couple of his friends. They used to, you know, come along to all my fights and watch. It was good, and we got to the weigh-in, and my opponent turned up. He walked in. So I was 16-year-old kid. This guy walks in, full growth beard, chiseled out of stone with a Bonds bluey singlet on, no shoes, and I'm like, and they go, that's your opponent. And my dad and his friends, they're all going up to the matchmaker going, this is not on, you know what I mean? You can't have a kid fighting a man like that. And I was just sitting there, so I'm shitting myself now, because I'm like going, I'm dead. I'm freaking dead, man. And then me coach McMurray at the time, he's just like not giving two shits. He's like, fucking Adrian, you got this, man. Look at the size of his chin. You can't miss it. And I was like, I was virtually in the change rooms with the lights off, just sitting in there with my head in my hands going, I am dead. And he comes in, he's just like, let's go, Adrian, man. You're just going to knock this fucking guy out. Like, you're just going to knock him out. And I'm like going, oh, man, I am dead. Anyway, come out, second round, bang, gone. He's knocked out. And I've just gone, get me out of here. If he gets up, I'm gone. Do you know what I mean? If he gets up, I'm dead. Look what I've done to him. He's going to be so embarrassed. And I'm like, and they're like, mate, you won. You've stopped him. And I'm like, I was just so, yeah. So I think probably at that time is when I really overcome that fear. And from then on, my confidence grew that much that I just did not care. So
that pretty much answers the next question, which was a moment of self-doubt and how you overcame it. So basically,
that's it. 100%.
You just went straight into that fear.
I had to. Otherwise I was done. Yeah. But a few years later, the same sort of thing happened, not to me, but to my opponent. There was the boxing show in my hometown. So obviously they wanted to have me on the show because I was winning, and I think I might have even been a state champion at the time or something like that. And yeah, I didn't have an opponent, so there was no opponent for me to fight in my division. So another boxing identity who happened to become my trainer a few years later rang me up and he said, I can get you a fight. I've got a guy that will fight you on your hometown show. And I said, okay, that's good. He goes, he's just got out of jail. He's like a neo-Nazi skinhead. Like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, what? Is this a sport or are we gladiators, man? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this? And so I'm just going, oh, what the hell? All right, yep, good. I've got to do it, So I get to the boxing show, to the weigh-in, and here's this neo-Nazi skinhead guy, tattoos and all, weighing in. And I'm just like, okay, yep. I'd overcome all that fear shit earlier, so now I'm not bothered. I'm just like, this is it. Good on you. Anyway, I needed to go to the toilet. And I thought, oh, okay, I better go to the toilet. So I think I was ready, had my shorts on ready, hands taped up, all good to go. Got to go to the toilet. I walk into the toilet, it's just me and my opponent in there, just him. And he looks at me and I look at him and I'm like, what are you looking at? And I was just staring at him going, what are you looking at? And he's looking at me and he didn't say anything, walked out, got in his car and drove home. 2 hours, drove home. No fight. And I've like gone, everyone's coming up to me going, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. But obviously that fear, which I dealt with, he, for all his, tattoos and supposed what he thought he was, you
looked him straight in the eye.
Yeah, and he didn't pass it, man. He was like, he got intimidated. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I don't know. Should I not have? I was scared. I just maybe I bluffed him. You know what I mean? But that's how I used to. That's what. But I actually no, I didn't bluff him because I was dead serious. Like you know what I mean? Like not at that moment, but when we get into the ring, like you're going to war, man. Like I ain't losing in my hometown, so hopefully you have done the training because I have. Like, anyway, but he, and so there was no fight that night, and all my friends had come, and it just it didn't end well.
So 2 weeks after becoming Australian champion, what's the mindset of the Australian champion once what you've got?
I think, so in my amateur days, I made a tough call. I left my coach at the time, who I'd been with for sort of 5 years, and I made that tough call to move gyms just to be closer, get different training, I just reassess everything, where I wanted to go with it. And I went to my coach at the time, Keith Ellis. He had one of the, if not the best record in Australian boxing for Australian champions. The gym was real tough, like there was some tough guys there. So I went to that gym. So when I went there, basically Australian champion it was like a minimum expectation. You know what I mean? Like everyone else was. That's what we're all gunning for. So it was just like expected. You're going to be Australian champion. So, it was hard. Like we trained hard. And then, so I get up to that point, win the Australian title. And for me, I never really sat back and went, I've done it. It was always just like, what's next? You know what I mean? Because now you've got the title, other people want it, or you want to keep moving ahead,
So what was next?
Next was probably, to, keep it as long as you can, defend it. You move up the world rankings, try and get a few other titles which get you higher up in those rankings. What I had come to realise that I knew my capabilities. I knew the price of going further, like on a world level.
What is that price?
Oh, it's just like total dedication. Like I had like full-time job. I was renovating my house. I had like 10 different things going on. Boxing was for me, it was almost like a hobby that I'd just done since I was a kid, and I was trying to be the best I could at it. But I knew there was a different price to pay at a world level. And I actually knew that I probably didn't have what it took to get and do well at that level. So you can always, boxing's full of like those, world champions or guys on the way up. Everyone wants to fight someone not as good. So they get their record better and then they get their shot. Whereas I was more of the person that would go, I don't want to fight anyone lesser than me. We're either on the same level and it's going to be a good fight, or I'm aiming higher because there's that challenge for me, So I lost my best fights that I had were the ones I lost. For me too, like if I look back and I go, oh, that was like one of my best fights.
Which one was that? Was that in regards to the one where you got knocked out of the ring?
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah, no, it was.
Was that a good fight?
It was a good fight. That fight, that was a big fight in Melbourne at the time against Tosca Vitrides. He was, he was one of those guys who was dangerous. Like no one wanted to fight him. He was intimidating. No one wanted to fight him. The funny thing was, about 6 years before that, I was at home on a Saturday afternoon and my coach rang me up. Keith rings me up and he goes, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, Saturday night, man, I'm probably going to go hang out with a few friends and whatever. He goes, do you want to come down to the gym? I can get you some sparring. I'm like, oh, Saturday night, like, this is weird, you know what I mean? He goes, Tosca Vitrides is flying out to Japan Sunday morning to defend his world kickboxing title. They want to do some sparring. And I'm like, yeah, all right, yep, because I'd never say no. You know what I mean? If that was that challenge thing, if someone, said, do you want to fight this guy? I'd just go, no worries. Now I've got to think about it, you know what I mean? Like my first reaction is like, yep. And then I'd go, okay, what do I got to do? So I've gone, yeah, no worries, I'll come down. So I get down the gym, we're all having a chat, it's all, friendly. I meet, Tosca and Paul and everyone. Oh man, I'm telling him, I've been watching you since I was a kid. Remember when you fought this guy? Oh, that was crazy, that fight. Because I was like a fan. Do you know what I mean? I've been watching you all this time. And then we get in the ring and he annihilates me. Punches the absolute shit out of me. I think I lasted 3 rounds. My eye was out here, swollen. I was just battered. And then he gets out, keeps smashing the bags, keeps training, smashing the bags. This is on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock. He keeps smashing the bags. I'm sitting there with an ice pack on my eye going, man, I just got smashed. Anyway, he leaves. Him and Paul leave. Keith slams the door shut on me, Mitch coach. And he goes, because my first words were, man, that guy is a savage. And he just looked at me and he goes, no one comes into my gym and does that to you. No one comes in here and like bashes one of my fighters like that. And I'm like, whoa, man, that's freaking Tosca Betrides, man. He's like 7-time world kickboxing champion. I'm like, no one. He goes, I don't give a shit. Do you want to be in this sport or not? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, don't you ever let anyone come in here and do that to you again. And I was like, far out, man. But so then fast forward years later, me and him have got a fight for the vacant cruiserweight title. So I'd won the title, then lost it, and now it was my time to challenge for it again. And it was vacant, so me and him, we got matched up for it. I'd been the Australian champion, I knew what that took, and now I wanted it back, and he's in the way. So I'm like thinking, oh yeah, bashed me up when I was a kid, you know what I mean, a few years ago. Now we're going to see, you know what I mean? So, and he was intimidating, I knew all that, like, yeah, but I just didn't care. So he was that ultimate challenge for me. Again, like overcoming that fear. So in my mind, I was going to a place where, I was like, man, like I was scared shitless of this guy. You know what I mean? Now I'm fighting him and I don't care. Like I'm going to try to win. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was a really good competitive fight, like right up until the last round in the 12th,
He's going to change a few things around a bit. Yeah,
12th round, and he caught me, and that's what happens. You know what I mean? I think it was pretty even up to that time, and it was he caught me and I got beat. But in losing, I didn't lose, if you know what I mean. I didn't pass it. But yeah, and again, later, like I think back to. Like most of my best fights were either the ones I lost or the ones that I had in the gym against good guys. I got the chance to fight the best guys in the country at the time, either through sparring, spending time around them, their trainers, and then going to battle against them as well. I got that chance. So I was happy with that. So the whole, I think, what you asked me before about that whole, what's next? Like, do you want to go on a world level? Like I actually didn't want to. I just wanted to do the best I could and fight the best guys and just in my country. And I just liked that. Just see where it took me. I wasn't hanging on to it. I wasn't gambling everything on myself to be a world champion and get this big payday money, because I just knew it wasn't there. I actually hated the boxing business. It sucked. It's shit. Ask anyone, like any boxer. The boxing business, the business of it is shit.
Ultra running, like you've done all the boxing and you got to that level, which is pretty much what you said, like the expectation of going to that gym, everyone was going to be a champion, go to that champion.
Yep.
And when you're sort of rolling off of boxing, so when I say rolling off of boxing, like you got to a level and towards the end of your boxing career, obviously no one, I don't know, does anyone sort of know when their time is up, or is it a series of fights that you lose, or is it something else in your mind? Because it's interesting that you talk about those people who are real champions and the dedication's at another level. Does a boxer stop boxing because, I guess the best way I can sort of describe it is like life happens, like more things enter your life and therefore you have less time to dedicate to the boxing, and that means you might start, oh, I won't do this training session, I won't do that because I've got to go and do this, and before you know it, life starts taking over, and then all of a sudden you start doubting yourself because, let's say for example, if you went for a run, or you signed up for an event and you didn't do much training for it, it's like, well, yeah, I've done this training before and I've done 100 Ks or I've done 100 miler before, but I know within myself I haven't done the lead up to this next event. Is it the same in boxing? Was there something that happened? I
think what happens to a lot of boxers, like it's always been this way, they and I was the same, like like life would be in the way, you're just doing life, and then you get the boxing fight put in front of you. So then all your focus goes to that, and it makes you eat the right foods, train hard, like you're focused. It's a great feeling, and you get up there, win, lose, draw, whatever happens. You've been through that whole process, and then it's over, and then you just go back to normal life. Most guys would, so obviously you have to make weight to be a fighter, so sometimes that takes over even the boxing training, like there's a war against the scales, so to say, before you even get in the ring to fight. So a lot of people will cut weight and they get into the best shape, the lightest they've ever been, and then the fight happens, and then afterwards they go back to normal life. Within a few weeks, a month, whatever, they're put on 10 kilos, and they need that carrot waved in front of them, another boxing fight, to get your shit together to keep it going, And then what happens is when you lose or you stop boxing for a while, and I don't know, maybe life gets boring or whatever, and you sort of go, I've got no goal to strive for, I've got nothing, I loved when I was boxing, I want to have another boxing fight. But now, you're the former champion who, was pretty good, and all these new guys are coming up. So the new guys, they want your name on their record. Mm-hmm. So, but you're like, and this, I knew the way the boxing business worked. I knew that was, but I would be prepared to go, like, back myself because of the confidence I'd gained. And this is why you need good trainers. Because I would say, yeah, I'll fight that guy. And they're like, mate, you haven't boxed for 2 years. You know what I mean? It's probably not a smart move. I'm like, well, what if I win? I'll fight. Get me a fight against the champion now. Because I would just want that, I need to go for the bigger goal straight away. Because, you love that feeling of like chasing it. So a lot of guys, they leave boxing and then they come back to it for that reason, because it, made them get their shit together and train and do the right thing and live healthy and all that. But when it's time, I guess you need someone to tell you when it's time to give up. Like, it's not, because you're getting punched in the head. Like, it's not the healthiest thing for you, a doctor would say. And, you just, like, it's not even the boxing fight, it's the training beforehand, all the sparring, and, you could be sparring a few nights a week, and it's hard. It's a hard sport. So I knew it was time to give up after, I was that guy who would have 2 years off and go straight into the hardest fight I could find against the best guy going around. Happened a few times. Have a good crack, but, and then, I lost, and then I'd disappear for 2 years. I'd be doing life, like working, and then I'd sort of get bored and go, I wouldn't mind having one more go. I reckon I've learned a lot, I'm mature now. I've learned a lot. I want to like have another go at it. And then, but I think you just need someone else to tell you, like you're done, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't find anything else, and you just get older and you stop,
doing stuff.
Stop doing stuff. Like you don't really have a goal.
So you went from boxing, and then there was a period of time, it seems, that you went from boxing to now what you're doing, and it's
oh no, ultra running. It's crazy.
Ultra running. How long was the period? Stopping boxing to then, because I still
years.
2 years ago. I've got the date in there. Cause it was 2 years ago, like a couple of days back.
Yeah.
And you said, I heard you do a bit of running, and then you were pretty much just starting.
Yeah.
So what time period was from that to that, and what got you into ultra running?
So again, so I hated running. I hated having to do it as part of boxing, but it was like this necessary evil that I hated. And I actually, and I like, if like my coach would say to us, all right, I need you to run this 10K hill, hills, every second day, 2 weeks, to get you up to this fitness level for this fight. I'd go, no worries, I'll do it. I hated it, but I did it. You know what I mean? I'd do it. So running was always like the start of training. Like in the Rocky films, he gets up at 5 a.m, it's dark, you're putting on your running shoes, you run outside, it's dark, and like no one's around, and you're like, my opponent's not doing this. You know what I mean? I was like, that's how I used to think. So running was always like the start of the training, like the start of your like your training camp for this fight. You know what I mean? You get up in the morning, that was the start. So I hadn't boxed for years, and I was probably not in a great space mentally, even drinking, smoking, just like this. It almost reminds me of like a cartoon of this former champion who was just like plummeted. So, but I just sort of like, the best thing that happened was for me, then my last sort of coach that I got with, Paul Fifield, he was like a fitness machine, like something that I wanted to be like. And a lot of the other guys at the gym, we go, man, I'm going to be like that one day, So I always had that in the back of my mind, like, train every day, like never drink, never smoke, never eat shit food, how can you live like that? Well, he does it. Like, what if, So at that low time, I just sort of made the decision one day. I went, I'm just going to train a little bit every day. And then also I just chipped away. And then, again, running was the start of training. So I'd get up and I'd just do that little bit, and I'd run a little bit. And then, at this point, I'd moved over to the southeast. So I'd left Victoria, and I was in South Australia. New town, new people, didn't know anyone. Running was a good way to, have a look around town. I went out, to the pine forest just to be out in the country, running around. I was just like, this is good. I love this. This is a good feeling, running. I hated it, but now I'm starting to enjoy it. And then just by, a chance meeting of going to see Brad get me tax done, and he was an ultra runner, and he's like, I'm there with the accountant getting me tax done, and we're talking about him running, and I'm you know, just getting interested, going, oh wow, I'm watching YouTube clips of people and have a look at this guy, and I'm like, oh wow, he's like, you know, we're I can't remember the timeline of it, but you know, we're going to run from Mount Gambier back to Millicent, 60 Ks. And I'm like, I'm going to have a go at that, you know. I'm going to train. Like, obviously, I didn't just be an idiot and go and run 60 Ks. Like, I'd sort of, you know, met Sam at work and he was into running and, you know, so just by me, yeah, it was a good way for me to meet people. So I'd moved to a new town and, like, it was, you know, I was keeping fit. You know what running's like. The running community's good. So I'm sort of like, oh, I'm meeting all these people, we're running. It's good. And next minute, I'm like busting my ass running from like 60 Ks from bloody Mount Gambier to Millicent through the pine forest, and I'm just like, this sucks, man. My feet, like, you know, it was the worst pain ever, but it was a good pain because you sort of go, oh, if I put in a little bit more training, this could, you know, I'll get better at it. So I don't know, and then just the distances just started getting longer and longer, but the best thing about running is you just get that time to think. Like with the boxing, it's just you're going on instinct and repetition all the time. You know what you're you don't have time to think. Like you actually, through the training and repetition, like all the combinations, you know, how you react to certain situations, you train for it, and it takes years. So with running, obviously it takes years to run long distances, but you know, it's a good way to think. Like I really enjoyed it, so I just kept going at it, you know. So and then,
like you said, after 2 years, you did the 60K, and now you've done a couple of 100Ks, and now you've done a 100-miler, and you're
signed up for a 200K.
135. So when it comes to all of these events, what's the insights you can get from boxing and being a boxing champion and carry that over to ultra running?
I learnt not to negotiate the price to pay in training. So I don't, like, if running 100 miles means, you know, there's a process, I'd say I just tick it off. I go, okay, what do I got to do to run that 100 miles in training? I've got to,
similar to being preparing for a fight,
and that's like so just the same process. So and that's like eating right. So like now, what I used to battle to get down to in boxing training, I walk around at every day, because I've just, you know, obviously matured enough maybe to have, you know, to like I've just been able to discipline myself more through obviously what I'd learnt when I was boxing, to now sort of to carry that over, and just set like a new goal and go, all right, this is the process I've got to do, you know, don't eat shit, train, like, you know, you go.
When you're overweight, you've got to carry it for the whole 100 miles.
That sucks. Yeah, so that I guess that's probably one of the things I can carry over from boxing, is that I'm not, you know, and obviously the other thing is too, like signing up for those harder events, like they scare me, you know. I mean, it actually like scares me a little bit to think that I could, you know, it's going to be hard, like put yourself through it, and you go, and that's why I go, yeah, I'll do it. I'm going to be better for it at the end. There could be, I don't know, maybe there's a easier way, but I don't know it yet.
So, with it come, like you've got all this experience in boxing and ultra running, now you've done some milers and the like. So, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to be the best of themselves when it comes to boxing or running, or just basically improving themselves? Like, you're at a certain level, is it a structure? Is it planning? Is it a certain mindset? Like, what is it? Like, if someone wants to be a boxing champion and they're watching you now, they've just sort of come in and they said, "Oh, Adrian, I've been boxing for 6 months. I'm really keen. Like, I want to be the next Australian champion." What would you say to them? Like, young bloke, 16, 17 years old, like, full of energy, like, I'm just...
I don't know, don't negotiate the price. Like, because most people are like, "Oh, I'm prepared to do this, but, you know, I can't do that." Like, well, you have to. That's, you know, you have to, you know, put the time into training, and it takes like heaps of like focus. But then again, there's like a lot of small steps. So I reckon, like, starting when I was 16, even to when I was 23, 24, when I was Australian champion, I actually just did it all on, a lot of it, I just did it all on instinct. I didn't know it. Like, I never read books. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like now, like I read a book all the time, like, about just, you know, inspiring stories or just people getting better and all that. And I'm like, yeah. So now I can think back and go, well, they're the steps I did. I didn't even know what they were at the time. Do you know what I mean? So if you're you know, a young kid and you want to, you know, there's obviously these steps you got to take, but you can't just write them out and follow them like that. You got to be doing it like every day. So you train, and you got to take these like small steps along the way, but not knowing what they are, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, if someone wrote, like, you know, you got to be like dedication and all these, I don't know,
motivational
like,
quotes.
Yeah, motivational quotes. Like, you know, you need to be disciplined, you need to be determination, and you need all these things. Well, how do you know you got them?
It's interesting you say that, because there's a term that I've used when it comes to a new paramedic who's on the road.
Yeah.
And that is, there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Like, intelligence is knowing all the quotes and reading all the books, or learning all the medical knowledge about being paramedic. It's like knowing all the words in the sentence but not knowing the grammar.
Yeah.
It's like, you can have all of this knowledge, but you need to take action.
Yeah.
Like, you need to actually...
So through the action and just doing it, like every day, just doing it, you end up ticking those headings off, those steps. You're doing them, but they're not numbered, you know what I mean? Like, you're doing them anyway, and they're all mixed up probably all over the place, but you're just taking like little bits of it, and you just got to be like disciplined enough to like keep going and don't stop. Like, you know, like I was guilty for it like half my boxing career. Like, you know, it went like that, of me get me shit together and then not. Yep, no. You know, so I did it forever. Now, like, I can sort of, you know, I'm probably more proud of myself now doing what I'm doing with the running stuff than I am when I was winning like boxing titles.
That's interesting you say that.
I am 100%, man.
Why is that?
Because one, like, when I wanted to box as a kid, and I like went through that, you know, I achieved the goal I'd set out to do. I don't know, like, it was like expected. And then obviously being, you know, I'm 47 now, and you know, I made the commitment to like look after myself a bit better and train, you know, and commit to training every day, to ultra running at an age later when, I don't know, I just had, I don't know, like the goals, like I made them up. Like, when I was boxing, it was like, that was the expectation. I'm going to be a Australian champion. And then when you get older, I don't know, you work, got kids, everything, life gets in the way, and you sort of go, well, what do I have? So I just made it up. I'm going to be an ultra runner. I'm going to run 200 Ks. Like what, if I can do that, yeah, I'll be like heaps more proud of myself. I can sort of go, well, yeah, I'll look back at that, because I wasn't meant to do it, if you know what I mean. I just made it up, put it in front. So, yeah, I don't know. I sort of, and I'd gone through with the whole ultra running process. Like I just dove into it then. Like I'm always reading, watching stuff. I run every day virtually, train every day. So, I'm right into it, and like all those, I made up when I first started. I went, I can't run that far. I'm just not built like a runner. I was like, I'm like a tank. I'm like a runner. Runners are like greyhounds. They're just lean, fast, and that's the runner. I'm like a little bulldog. So
and you soon find out quickly when you're doing the 100 milers that people come.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter, and then the whole running community is like that. There's so many different people and different types of people that do it, and I was like, okay, how can she run 100 miles? You know what I mean? How can that person? That's crazy. Like, what's my excuse? You know what I mean? I'm making them up. I'm making up excuses before I've even had a crack at doing it. So then I just, I don't know, what's that David Goggins saying when he says, if you're not that person, create the motherfucker who is. Like, you know what I mean? No, it's true. Like, okay, I'm not that type of guy that can do that. Well, what if I make myself into it? You know what I mean? What if, yeah. So like I said, like I'm lighter now than I was when I was 15 years old. Because I've just learnt heaps more about like diet, nutrition, what it takes to be, to be able to run, 100 miles. I've just delved into it, and I'm just sort of like following that process, like, eating, and I'm trial and error, I've gone from like, I tried different diets. I'm sort of, I was like full vegetarian for a year. And then one day I wasn't, I'll try something else. So I tried something else. I tried different types of training, and I'm just into it. And now I just made it I wanted to be doing this shit when I'm 60, 70. I actually don't want to stop. So that,
you'll be that person that overtook me when I was doing my 100k run. A 75, 78-year-old guy from Victoria. I think he was a judge, a High Court judge. And he was the nicest bloke. And we were talking about books and philosophy, and I said, I'll catch you later, and I ran off. Yeah. And then, I burned all my biscuits too early, and I was at the 87-kilometre aid station, and this old 78-year-old High Court judge comes in, grabs a can of Coke, has a sip, "Hi, John," and walks off. He beat me. So,
soul takers. I know.
He was pleasant.
Mate, just doing the tower a couple of weeks ago here, I was like, on my last lap, the 56 Ks or whatever, on my last lap, and there was these two guys, a bit older than me, like we'd sort of been going back and forward a bit, and they were in front of me, like having this conversation between themselves, and they're like, "What are we doing this shit for, man?" And they're like, "I don't know, I've had enough of this. We don't need this in our life. We don't need this pain." And I'm laughing at them, and they're going, "Yeah, stuff it. Oh, let's just finish it off." And then they just took off, and I'm like, I was actually trying to catch him. I'm like, I was just being left for dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these two guys are just complaining about, "No, we don't need this shit anymore." They just like took off, and I was like, nah. It's just, it's funny.